All right, today we're diving into a story that feels like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood sci-fi script. We're talking about a flight that supposedly vanished into thin air, only to pop back into existence almost 4 decades later. I mean, is it even possible for an airplane to literally fly through time?
And that's the big question, right? It's the one that has kept this legend alive for so long. It sounds like pure fantasy, but you'd be surprised how many people treat the story of Pan Am Flight 914 as a genuine, unsolved mystery. So, come on, let's dig in and separate the incredible legend from the cold, hard reality. So to get to the bottom of this, we're actually not going to start back in 1955 when the plane disappeared. Nope. We're going to jump forward, way forward, by 37 years, to the exact moment this ghost from the past made its shocking and completely baffling return.
Okay, so picture this. It's just a totally normal morning at the Simón Bolívar International Airport in Caracas. You know the vibe. Planes taking off, planes landing, business as usual. But then, all of a sudden, a blip appears on the radar that has no business being there. It's an unregistered aircraft, and it's approaching, fast.
Now this is where it gets really weird. This wasn't a modern jet. What the air traffic controllers were seeing was a Douglas DC-4. We're talking an old-school, propeller-driven plane from the 1950s. It was like a museum piece had decided to go for a joyride. You can just imagine the confusion in that control tower turning into pure disbelief.
And then, the radio crackles to life with a message that makes the whole situation seem impossible. The controller, a guy named Juan de la Corte, is absolutely stunned. First off, Pan Am, the airline, had gone out of business a year earlier. But the real mind vendor, Flight 914, was a flight that had vanished without a trace way back in 1955.
Just try to wrap your head around the scale of this. The story says that on July 2, 1955, Pan Am 914 took off with 57 people on board and then, poof, it just disappeared from radar. No distress call, no wreckage, nothing. The case went cold, and everyone assumed the plane had crashed. Until this very moment, 37 years later.
So in a state of complete shock, the control tower gives the plane clearance to land. Ground crews and security are scrambled, racing to the runway. And as this ghost flight touches down, the so-called evidence for the impossible really starts to pile up.
According to the tale, when that cabin door swung open, it was like a time capsule was cracked open right there on the tarmac. You had men in old-school hats, women in 1950s dresses, carrying vintage luggage. Everything was from another era. But the craziest detail? The passengers themselves. They looked confused, scared, and not a single one of them had aged a day since 1955.
Just think about that for a second. For all 57 people on that plane, the flight from New York had just been a normal couple of hours trip. They had absolutely no idea that for the entire rest of the world, almost 4 decades had just flown by.
And this is where the story takes a wild turn. As ground crews start to approach, the air traffic controller tells the pilot that the year is 1992. You can supposedly hear the sheer panic in the pilot's voice over the radio, and before anyone can stop him, he guns the engines, tears down the runway, and takes off without any clearance at all. The old DC-4 climbs into the clouds and, just like that, it vanishes for a second time.
What a story, right? A plane that jumps through time, passengers who don't age. It sounds like the greatest aviation mystery of all time. But is it? Where did this incredible, unbelievable account actually come from? Well, if you go looking for this incident in any official aviation records or declassified government files or even major news archives from 1992, you're going to find exactly nothing. That's because the origin of this story isn't in some dusty official report. It's somewhere you'd be a lot less likely to look. The entire story first appeared right here, in the pages of the Weekly World News. Now, for those who don't know, this was an American tabloid that was famous for publishing fantastically entertaining and completely made-up stories. We're talking about alien presidents, bat boys, the works. This wasn't investigative journalism. It was pure fiction designed to sell papers. So how does a fun piece of fiction from a supermarket tabloid become a global legend? Well, it found the perfect partner in crime. The internet. In the early days, it got passed around on forums as a real unsolved mystery. Then, once social media and video sites took over, the story just went viral. It completely shed its fictional skin and started being presented all over the world as absolute truth. So, let's do the one thing the viral posts never bothered to do.
Let's actually put the legend side by side with verifiable reality and see exactly how this masterfully crafted hoax was built.
The moment you start looking for actual evidence, the whole story just evaporates. There are no official records of a Pan Am Flight 914 ever existing, let alone vanishing. Not a single credible news outlet reported a time-traveling plane in 1992. And that eyewitness, Juan de la Corte? Total fabrication. The photo they used of him was just swiped from a totally unrelated story. The tabloid didn't just invent the event, they even reprinted it years later with different dates, just to keep the hoax going.
So when you get right down to it, Flight 914 is the perfect case study in how a modern myth is born. You start with one sensational, totally fictional article, you combine it with our natural love for mysteries like time travel, and then you amplify it through the echo chamber of the internet. The result? A story so compelling it just feels like it has to be true.
And you know, this brings us to the most interesting question of all. The legend of Flight 914 is a complete hoax, we know that. But the fact that it spread like wildfire tells us something very real about ourselves. It shows our deep fascination with the unknown and this powerful desire to believe that maybe, just maybe, the rules of reality can be bent. It's a great reminder that sometimes the facts can take a backseat to the simple thrill of a really good story.